Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. What's up, everybody? Happy March 20th. It's Friday. Yay, spring. Happy spring equinox. Happy Aries season. Happy birthday, Aries. like, happy Mercury going direct, stationary today. Hallelujah. So many happy moments that are culminating in this pivotal time of change. I hope you are integrating the energy in the most high vibrational way you possibly can. In the spirit of the season, I went through a complete reset. I cut my nails down to the white meat. Washed my hair, restyled it in something new I've never done before, so that's exciting. Did some cleaning. I did a lot of refreshing per my last message. I do heed to my messages as well when they apply, to just take the time in that interim of transition to just nest and clean house and release and prepare for something fresh. So I'm not done. I'm on stage one of washing my son's hair, which is the takedown of the old style. Did that yesterday as well. And now today is the wash. Then the next day will be the styling because he has a lot of hair. So I was quite ambitious to take on both of our heads in 1 week. Never done that before. So again, in the spirit of the times, newness is all around. But I just felt like we both needed a refresh before the season started, and so that we shall have. But yeah, happy all the things, and we're still in the new moon as well. The remnants of that energy, so it's all good. It's all good. I'm going to use Intuitive Cav's tarot deck just to bring the fire, bring the heat a little bit. It's 12:11 on the clock, so let's see what we got. Ooh, starting with the High Priestess. Okay, come through, sis. All right, let's see. What about the High Priestess? The Moon. Okay. That's some double hidden secrets. What's that about? Let's see. What about the Moon? High Priestess has access to high to multi-dimensional intel and information, maybe deep secrets. I mean, so clearly there's something being held on to. Let's see. A deep knowing. White magic. Ooh. Moon magic. Might be a moon priestess or goddess. Or somebody that, just innately, certainly intuitively, but innately is activated by the transits. For me, for instance, like I've shared before, that I write a prayer, in the construction of a poem for every single moon cycle. New moon, full moon, sometimes, always for the eclipses, sometimes for pivotal moments in between, like if it's a major transit and I feel guided to integrate with it or activate it by my proclamations, I do so. So maybe there's somebody here that can relate to that, using their power of word and prayer and proclamation for supreme purposes, only for good purposes, only to align with the universal ordinance of overall, in submission to a supreme source, not particularly for, not, I'll say not exclusively for personal gain or for selfish reasons, and certainly, if nothing else, absolutely not to cause harm to or against anyone else, or to resist the flow of the universe and the heavenly plan as it's unfolding in the 3D. None of that. That's off limits. You are not in this energy if you're doing that. Little one. This is real high priestess activity here. And it doesn't have to be, extremely mystical, but something and somebody is. With white magic, with the moon. And it's something that, again, it's an appointment. It's ordained. This is not out of alignment. Something is very much in sync cosmically and creatively. So it's not just taking it upon yourself to force an outcome or make the moon your bitch, so to speak, or the elements your bitch. It's like, what is the moon or what are the transits, the stars, the heavens communicating to creation as a reflection? How can I, like, almost like and however you ritualize that, whether it's just in proclamation, in actual prayer, in some type of ceremonial aspect, it's about making agreement with what already is, acknowledging an agreement. Ooh, 7 of Swords. Tricky energy. Yeah, some folks observe that those qualities, and some energies have those qualities, and like I said, they don't use them for productive purposes. They may use it for profitable purposes, but not productively. And in this case, it's not productive. The purpose behind it is something deceptive or sinister. It can be, but it also, 7 of Swords can actually, it can actually double down on the secrecy of these frequencies here, where maybe those that practice a certain way have felt that they couldn't, really share that or step out into the light, because of fear of scrutiny or persecution or condemnation or judgment. So it could even be that. That's actually, I'm gonna get another card, but that might be more, it could be both, it definitely could be both. It could be energies that are looking to kind of infiltrate this privilege, to have it for themselves, or to attack it, to demonize it. Again, 7 of Swords could even be speaking word curses over a thing or over a person. Could be demonizing practices outside of, like, conventional and traditional religious organization. It could be that as well, but it literally, for that reason, could be why High Priestess, masculine or feminine, male or female, is more self-contained, and does do things behind closed doors and doesn't share, their practices per se with the masses. Some part of it is because it's sacred, is not for everybody. Like I said, I have books of prayers, if you can imagine, for all of the cycles that have already occurred. And that's my personal devotion. Like, I don't even feel right if I don't write on the matter at hand. It's just become a part of my practice. But I don't share all of them. One day I am going to. I can't wait, actually, to package it all in different volumes to share. But right now, that's my sacred practice. And every now and again, I feel guided to share with the platform. But some things are for public consumption and some things just are not, because for the most part, the general public, especially the most vocal of the general public, don't always know exactly how to receive that. So there's a move to rejection, especially for things that are hard to understand, or unrelatable to them. There's usually an impulse to reject, condemn, judge, denounce, demonize, like all of that. And most of in this energy, this is not anything demonic or dark. I mean, it's dark because it's secret, it's sacred, it's behind a veil at times, but it's not dark meaning maleficent. I've never written a prayer that is maleficent, ever. Even when I may have felt a rage against a certain circumstance or situation, I still transmute the energy to the most positive light possible. And here it is, the Lovers, making that higher choice of frequency, because that's the devotion that I maintain to myself and to my Supreme. So I don't know why we enough about me. Why does this matter right now? Well, maybe because the universe, this is giving way to to the reasoning. I get the sense, and I'm just gonna speak it because I get the sense that some folks might be thoughtful about what makes certain folks so special. Maybe you can relate to that. Like, the mysterium about you, again, it incites this fascination, but also a curiosity, a fascination, but also like maybe some type 1221 lighting up on the clock, maybe some type of skepticism, maybe as well. And the way that folks are about to be put on display, here it is, perhaps for the things that have been made, have been devoted to, have been a devout practice behind the scenes, sacredly, is not going to make sense to some observing on the outside looking in, for all the reasons that I said already. And it may even almost like appear to be like a revelation out of nowhere, like certain folks being exalted or elevated in positions or just advanced in their personal lives, particularly on platforms to continue to share, and expel and advance a certain vibration. It may be perplexing for others to witness, like, what makes them so special? And especially if there was any particular criticism for who you are, or misunderstanding about who you are, what you do, or why you don't do certain things, or why you aren't a certain way. This is what I was seeing with the Lovers, is like not just you choosing up and choosing you above the fray, but it's also how the universe has chosen you as well. How the universe has has selected certain individuals for, I feel like everybody gets a calling, but in that choosing of self is what distinguishes you from those that are actually chosen. You know, it starts with you choosing you first, like you activating that proclamation once again. And here it is at the start of Aries season. This is high time for making a strong presentation or profession of your true identity. And for some that are used to maybe practicing or existing and even thriving in the shadows comfortably, you know, this could be a time when those choices that you've made sacredly and perhaps even secretly are now being put on display, maybe in a different inflection of for others to see. But that's the origin of the display factor, of the exaltation factor. If anybody was curious to know, you know, that this is really not so much, or at least not to my knowledge, about favorites. You know, there is favor in all of this, but again, that was that sense of favor has been grounded by your own personal choices, particularly the high frequency ones, or the ones that were made in the face of fear, you know, forwarding faith beyond the desire, of course, the human innate desire to be understood, to be accepted, respected, embraced. You know, many that operate in this frequency don't really have the luxury of that to in if they're truly expanding in their authentic identity, because the mainstream of creation, you know, or at least humanity, I'll say, doesn't really understand. We're not wired to understand that, which is why it was such a pivotal choice to make in the first place, because you weren't really conditioned or groomed to do so easily, and yet you did it anyway. So it's like now, however you've chosen, you chose up, and the universe is choosing you. And for those that might still kind of be hating in the sidelines or on the background or just bewildered, you know, they may or may not get the privilege of the understanding to the question of why, you know, but I'm expressing this to whomever may even be thoughtful of a why me, or all this for me, or what did I do to deserve this? This is what you did. You chose up. This is what you did. You maintained your devotion to the divine, whatever that is for you. You know, when you didn't have to, there was nobody was putting a gun to your head, of course. As a matter of fact, there was more resistance not to than to continue. And you maintain the integrity of your devotion, as I understand why I was saying all that about, you know, using your power, your proclamation, your profession, your identity, your attention, your profession of faith for the highest conceivable creativity you could harness. That's powerful. It has not gone unnoticed. Maybe you thought, you know, you've been doing, but the divine has seen all. And it's only a matter of time before you have the evidence, especially in this fresh season, you know, of activation, like whether that evidence be, you know, that evidence of agreement and what's the right word, like approval almost in some sense. That evidence could be heightened gifts, you know, seeing even more deeply or farther ahead or more detailed. It could be recognition for things that you have said or done, or just for your presence alone. It could be come materially and a return on your invested energy in a monetary form or in a resourceful way. Um, it could be in a partnership for sure with the lovers here, or platonically, professionally, or intimately. Um, it could come in so many different forms, but it is here. I can't even say it's coming. It is here, by the way that I'm speaking of it. And the Seven of Swords is also the energy that gives me, that others are kind of like lurking to witness it as well. You know, they don't know in what form they're about to see it, but they know something is going down, and they know that they are on the outside looking in of it, you know, or they don't have as much access as they would like to have. And so, you know, there's also the mindfulness of that energy in the shadows. But, you know, whom shall you fear when this is the resonance of your righteousness in spirit and in flesh? You know, like, let them watch, I guess. Give them a show, I suppose. I don't know. So anyway, let's see. Or I guess I should say I hope they're enjoying the show. I just heard, after these messages, we'll be right back. Why? Oh, look at this, divine guidance. Okay, come through. Come through. I like where this is going. Yeah. Maybe there are some that actually today is a very, I think the last message talks, we led with like some divine clarity piercing through as a breakthrough. And this is a fine day. That's a beautiful card. A field of sunflowers, a clear straight path, the sun lighting in, you know, your steps in the distance, like almost like a beacon to your uh your like calling to you like a beacon. It's like, and the birds, you know, in harmony and synchronicity. It's given like you're definitely headed in the right direction if you were questionable about it. Or again, this is confirmation that the direction that you chose, perhaps total opposite energy here with the moon, when you couldn't see for sure, you couldn't know for sure, you know. Here is the clearing, here is the confirmation, the affirmation that you learn to live without, but certainly is much more comforting to live in the light of. You know, like you may have groomed yourself to go without being supported or understood or accepted, but nothing feels better than that confirmation, particularly in the way that we as human beings are accustomed to experiencing it, and that's in the material form. It's like something very fruitful is harvesting now, you know, and you're not just hopeful that the seeds that you planted, you're not just having to kind of sustain yourself on the hope that the seeds that you're planting or that you planted are going to yield something someday, or something, you know, hopefully ripe and edible, or consumable, I suppose. This is like, wow, you know, like all of this, again, for me, it's a whole field of sunflowers, wildflowers at that. So this is like harvest and returns that, and maybe even rewards that you don't even have control over, like you can't even contain. Hence why it's probably going to be virtually impossible to stay hidden anymore, to stay, because the abundance that you are carrying now showing itself like your heart on your sleeve, so to speak, it is, again, it's going to draw fascination, it's going to draw interest, it's going to draw positive and perhaps even negative things and everything in between. But for the highest purpose, for those that, are going to be curious as to what did you do, or what's unique about you, or how did this occur, how did this, how did you get here? Those are the ones, that are in alignment to be inspired by your testimony, whether it's spoken or whether it's just exemplified in your everyday life. That's what it's for, that's what it's for, to lure others onto their straight and narrow path into the sunshine with, surrounded by fields of sunflowers in whatever way that appeals to their, unique desires. It's like everybody gets to go if you desire to and are willing to make the choices to see yourself through it and to it, to see yourself through those hazy seasons of life, and sometimes even dark seasons of life where it feels like everything is pitted against you, to still maintain integrity and focus and hold space for the highest possibility, and sometimes losing sight of what that even, what the specific purpose may even be anymore, but still devoting yourself and committing yourself to realizing it, the moment it crystallizes, or the moment you can grasp that perception again. It's no easy feat. It's just not. There's so many things that can come along the way to persuade you otherwise, to take a shortcut, to hurt somebody or step on somebody to accelerate faster, to just give up, hope altogether, and resolve that wherever you are is good enough. You don't have the energy or the will to persevere for any greater potential. And there's nothing wrong with that particularly. That's also a human response. But the point is, it's like the choosing up aspect is what happens when you don't allow yourself to stay there long, or you don't allow yourself to be captivated by that very human response, or that human inclination. And it's like the heavens are opening up. I love this. Let's see what else we got here. And not a moment too soon, I'm sure. Yeah, emotional manipulator. I knew something freaky was coming. Yeah, not a moment too soon, because the emotional manipulation part was, again, this is representation of all the things that wanted to make you feel despair, or feel the dark, consume, or what's the right word, to be consumed perhaps by the darkness around you, but also to make agreement with it, so because the power of your choice, your proclamation, your profession of faith is truly the divine force, conducted through your human being. So whatever you say is true, whatever you make agreement with, so it is, which is why my prayers are pivotal, in my existence personally. And I know they have a resonance far beyond just me, which is why I commit to them so devoutly, I guess the word, because if nothing else, if the spirit gives me the privilege of word composition, and the word is the most, one of the most powerful forces in this 3D existence, it's like you're using the word to create things regardless. We create gifts and curses on a daily basis just by the composition of our language, whether we mean to or not. So when you have you're given the call to intentionally use your words to infect change, or to project a reality that is prosperous and productive. You'd be crazy not to use it. Now here it is. The emotional manipulation is that pushback for somebody like me to make you feel like you're doing something wrong or out of alignment with the divine, or that's witchcraft, or that's sorcery, or that ain't prayers, or whatever. However the pushback could come, and usually it comes from the inside out by way of your conditioning. The manipulator doesn't have to be embodied in a physical form outside of you. Maybe it could have been incited through folks that are close to you, or just the general consciousness, the popular consciousness overall. But it's what pierces your personal security that is the deal breaker. So this could exist in many different forms outside of you, but what you renewed your covenant with, your commitment to, is what took precedence for those that resonate with this. And I'll share, this is a perfect example, because I don't know, maybe I'm feeling like maybe this is a moment to be transparent. There was a particular series on, I think it was on a Discovery Channel at one point in time. It might still be, but I was watching a creator, and they had made a reference to this series, and I didn't even have a Discovery Channel, but I felt strong in my spirit that I needed to watch it, and the name of the series was A Discovery, or The Discovery, or A Discovery of Witches, right? Now, just by title alone, my Christian upbringing and conditioning should have completely resisted that, and probably some small voice inside of me did. But thankfully, my conscious curiosity is what won over, because I watched the series. It was really a good series. I was really into it. But the thing that it sparked within me so significantly was the power of prayer, and the main character, she, after going through some dark nights and some trial and tribulation, and her own coming of age, so to speak, or rites of passage to her identity, was that she was not just a witch. She actually had a mixture of different things going on in her bloodline, which made her like almost an antibody for a crisis that was affecting all of like the mystical beings in this tale. But she was a spell weaver, and that resonated with me so it just clicked something in me, because I've always been a writer at heart. I've always, even in school, in every level of school, I've always had teachers that were drawn to the way I put words together. And I used to have even friends say, like, I just love how you use words. Sometimes you'd be hard up to really to know or to experience it on this platform, because sometimes it's like but in my real waking life, I've often been told, that my words resonate deeply, and they're very sincere, especially when I feel I mean, it happens with strangers, but especially when I have an emotional attachment or connection to someone, like I speak from my heart and I say what, I feel a deep connection to whomever I'm communicating with. And sometimes I've even surprised myself, as to what comes up and the response to it at the perfect time. But anyway, I'm saying all that, building the case for why it made sense to me, but the way that it was presented was in a way that, by my conditioning, my experiences, my upbringing, I should have immediately rejected as something like, no, no, that ain't me, that ain't. But I knew that it was an invitation. I knew that it was a call to draw me deeper into myself. And of course, even as the character in the series she was extremely powerful. She could have used her, everybody was lusting after her power because she was able to open more or less like keys to information by way of this book that all the beings were coveting. Only she had the key to unlock its meaning, to its revelation, which ultimately ended up being the cure for, again, all of the mystical people, not just one species over the other, but there were like werewolves, demons, and witches that all were at one time kind of like fighting each other, and then they forged this community, this like council, so to speak, but they had all these rules and they weren't allowed to intermingle or intermix. One species couldn't marry the other. But come to find out, the cause for the decline in one particular species, I think it was the demons, was because of this segregation, this division in the collective population. The cure was in the head witch that I'm talking about, the main character witch, because she had a mix of they found out that it was the demon DNA that of which she also had in her blood, in her DNA, in her genetic makeup, that was the cure. The reason why they were like falling into psychosis or eventually dying off or self-harming, was because that they thought it was best to segregate and separate everybody, when actually it was the cohesiveness of the species that had kept them alive and kept them thriving, in a healthy way, and not in a way that would ultimately forge maleficence. So it was I definitely recommend it. It was an interesting way to just consider like otherworldly things that, again, we see as like, oh no, I don't want no parts of that. But little do you know, you may be a part of that, or it may be a part of you, a pivotal part at that. So anyway, I just felt guided to share that because that incited me. I want to say over 2 years ago was when I watched that, and I've been committed ever since. And I've seen the change. I've seen the evidence. I've seen the materialization, the alchemization, the what's the other word? The transmutation of creation through my words. I've seen it firsthand. And now to the point where it's hard to imagine, life without that practice and that devotion personally. And one day when I share it, I know there will be pushback and there will be questions, and there will be condemnation. But this has been a long time in the making, that I've been grounded in this practice and in this work to know that it's not just by my own doing. It's for a greater cause, for a greater purpose. And if I allow myself to succumb to what the fray has to say, or even what I might think the fray has to say, because you could even be surprised that there's not as much resistance as you would think there would be. I would miss an opportunity to follow a path that was specifically paved for me, at least in this aspect. There are other things along that path for me, but I know that this was a pivotal one for sure. Even the way that it's grounded me in the interim, in the dark spaces, in the fog, in the uncertainty, in the insecurity. It's been the practice that has brought me back to a stable place each and every time I do it, because for one, it's astounding to me that the spirit continues to speak through me through every single passage. Like, damn, another one, like DJ Khaled. Every time I sit down, well, I used to get nervous, like, oh, am I going to have anything? Is anything going to come to me? And I swear, like clockwork, it always does. It always does. The perfect words for the perfect time, So I love that for myself. And again, if I hadn't watched that series that came from an unsuspecting recommendation at an unsuspecting time in an unsuspecting package, I never would have. That was the pivotal moment that I realized that I had this gift. Writing casually or even educationally is one thing, and I was, I've always been good with words, so I could sit down and I've written even rhymes and raps and things like that, but this has a different resonance when you're doing it for the purpose of proclamation and prayer. It's just different. It's a different power that comes from that. So that's my firsthand testimony, and yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. What was that? Page of Pentacles. Yeah, that's what I learned, and it was a gem and a jewel for me in a very secret place that's still bringing me value to this day. Four of Wands, look at this, balance and harmony. And of course, this could also be like achieving a greater, at a greater level, a higher level, or a greater resonance, at this time because of what you have maintained, what you continued through up until this point. Is bringing peace to it's bringing structure and stability, harmony to your foundations. I gotta say though, with the Lovers and the Four of Wands, it's definitely opening up a pathway for a deeper connection, either with yourself, with the world around you, or with a particular person. I can't not bring light to that or acknowledge that, because the Lovers and the Four of Wands definitely speaks to that. You unapologetically devoting yourself, committing yourself to your highest self is magnetizing that match to your auric field. And or it could have actually been the catalyst for release of imbalanced energies from your auric field, particularly through the last season. That could have happened too. Realizing that certain energies in your space were not in alignment with, the path that you feel called to travel. And that could have been a pivotal point as well of allowing that transition to occur, and like surrendering to those changes that also couldn't have been easy, you know, especially with people and places and things that you find comfort with. But you must have done that too, because now there's a restructuring that's taking place that seems like an accomplishment. It's like having had one failed relationship, maybe even a divorce, and going through, you know, the transition of that time, which is not easy for sure, literally a transition after a relationship. And then coming across someone that, you know, like you feel like you have known all your life, that really is a soulmate energy or a divine partner, a sacred partner. And it's no shade to what was, because that got you to where you are. But where you are, it's like, wow, you know, like you may not even be able, you may not have even ever thought such a commitment, you know, or covenant was possible, you know. So yeah, something about that here too. Like, good things for the new season. I'm here for it. Let's see. Oh, I done too much talking, y'all. I'm gonna try to go real fast. I don't know. I felt like I had to share that. And look at this, 10 of Wands, and I'm gonna take that in reverse. Yes, I am. The struggle is over, and I heard that when I was praying before the message. Isn't that a song? Struggle's over for you. The struggle is over. Yeah, it's a gospel song, I think. Is that right? Yeah. Let me see. Let me just make sure. I think so. So I can reference it properly. Sorry. I mean, the message is clear, but maybe you might want to go listen to this strong. Yeah, because you've been strong. The struggle is over. Who sings that? Youth for Christ. Oh, wow. Featuring Jonathan Nelson. Yeah. If you were Stellar Award winner, wow. Jonathan Nelson, Stellar Award winner. That's probably all the reason why I was supposed to look at that. Stellar Award winner. Get into that. Stellar, star power, cosmic, universal, divine, award winner. Like this is what it's come to. This is what it was all for. Because this point of recognition and validation is going to be the thing that now carries you onto this path of, again, being a divine spectacle, so that you can spread the good news, the gospel of what is possible to others, to break them out of their chains of condemnation, of damnation, of skepticism, of fear. You know, to show like you don't have to live in a box marked by anyone or anything in particular, because there's so many boxes we can be captivated by. Like, you can live in the truth of your own light and prosper, maybe even profit in that regard. All right, prosper and profit. That's too many. I'm not taking that one. Knight of Swords. And this could just be, you know, like that warrior spirit that you, again, championed for the truth. For truth, the sake of truth, your truth, what is true for you. Not to dismiss anything else as a lie per se, but you had to find what matters to you and to follow that path relentlessly, fiercely. That's what the Knight of Swords did. Nine of Wands, yeah, and it wasn't easy. You could have been beat down along the way. Hell, you might still be tired. You might be tired right now from the devotion and commitment to stay the course, from the resistance that came up against you, the resistances that were going on inside of you, perhaps even from missteps along the journey, growing pains and all of that sort of thing. Yeah, but you're still standing on your power, firm on the power that you possess. And with a story to tell, I'm sure, on account of it. Let's see what else is with this Knight of Wands so I can hurry up. But that's just like, warrior in battle is almost and undoubtedly going to walk away with some bruises, or just some wear and tear or fatigue